What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports Sabersim show. I am your host, Mangone. I'm here with Jordan. We're breaking it all down. We're talking some Sabersim. We're talking some NFL. Jordan, let's bring in real quick. How's it going? How's your day? And I guess tell the people before we dive in kind of some of the stuff we're going to talk about today for the show.
Yeah, no, I'm doing good. Excited to be back on here. We got NFL coming up real quick on us here, just a week away now today. So we talked a little bit of NFL last week with AP. We had some of our initial week one projections go live last week. Want to talk about that just a little bit more, do some builds, walk through how to use Sabersim for NFL and what makes us different. I think particularly today, I want to focus kind of on some of the smaller field or smaller entry limit kind of stuff, the single entry, the 3-max kind of contests. I think that, Sabersim and all optimizers really get a reputation as, people say, oh, that's for MME. I like to play just one, 2, 3, 4, 5 lineups or something like that. I don't need that. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do in Sabersim, even if you're just playing a handful of lineups. And I want to walk through some of that here today.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. I think hand buildings, like, you can do it. It's not a bad thing. I think you can make winning lineups with it for sure. You can also do some hand building to see like what the opto maybe could do. And like, let's say you hand build something up and you're like close to kind of getting to where you think you want to get to. Maybe you actually run the opto with that and you're like, oh crap, I found a way to do it for me in the way that I like. So there's definitely ways that using an optimizer, and you can hand pick a team. Like I had someone the other day, they reached out to me and they said, oh man, I know you kind of hand build your teams more, right? But like, they had some questions about some stuff with my single entry 3 max stuff. And I was like, listen, I still hand pick those teams, right? I still use the opto when it comes to MLB, and I just say, hey, like, out of these, however many teams I'm looking at, this is the one that I like the most. And I kind of pick that. Sometimes you look at the ownership. Maybe that's a reason to get it. Maybe it's the projection isn't that far off, right? Like, it's just little things like that I do. And that's why I think using an optimizer is great. That's why if you guys can, go sign up. Use that code NFL15, get you 15% off. You don't just get NFL too. You're getting all the sports. You're getting college football, which, man, I cannot wait for some CFB tonight. Excited to do that. We got a show coming up later for that as well. That'll be at like 5:30 Eastern. So you do not want to miss out on that. Can't wait to break it all down with you guys. But Jordan, we got to dive in and obviously talk some NFL. We're going to be on here for like probably 25, 30 more minutes because we had some technical difficulties, but we're here. We're talking NFL. Jordan, why don't you show the people some stuff here, as we dive in and kind of build out some teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we'll get Sabersim pulled up here. One of the things that really just makes Sabersim pretty unique is that, we have the average projections for every single player, just like any other optimizer. You first pull Sabersim up, looks pretty similar to anything else out there. But the big thing that makes us different and what's so useful for football is that, if we're saying Christian McCaffrey projected 23.02 DraftKings points, right? This is not the end all be all for us. We're not just optimizing. We're not just thinking about the average projections, right? We simulate out every game on the slate, play by play, taking into account. And for football, I feel like this is just so important, taking into account everything that affects the next play on the football field, right? We're tracking the score, we're tracking the clock, we're tracking coaching tendencies, team tendencies to build out these realistic like ranges of outcomes. Like it's literally on the back end on our side. It's like a Madden sim, right? Play by play of how the game could play out. We do that 10,000 times per game. And then that lets us come up with a full real range of outcomes for Christian McCaffrey, as well as how correlated he is to every single player playing in the same game, right? I think a lot of people that play, NFL DFS have a sense, hey, high correlation sport, right? We need to stack. We need to keep track of correlations, but correlations in football are actually pretty complicated. There's like some general rules of thumb. I think, QB obviously correlated to the wide receiver, QB negatively correlated to the opposing defense, right? But when you get into stuff like pass catching backs and like how different offenses actually work, and how some tight ends are like a alpha tight end 1 and others are just going to stay in and pass block, and like how do you manage all this for all these different teams, also keeping track of all the news. We calculate out all of these correlations here, like between every single player to a second decimal point here of precision. And then we pull this data in automatically when you're building your lineups. So you don't have to track and think about how every single player is correlated and come up with this all intuitively in your head. We're basically handling all that for you. So I think the easiest way to just demonstrate that is to just actually kind of start building some lineups and start talking about what these lineups look like here. So what I'm going to do, since we're going to try to focus a little bit here more on the smaller fields, is I'm going to just build a pool of lineups for a 3-max contest. We'll do an entry limit of 3-max. We'll do, about, I don't know, 10,000 to 50,000 entrants. I think that's probably about right for football with these giant contests. And we'll build some lineups, and I'll show you how this is actually kind of taking into account these ranges of outcomes of players, pulling in correlations automatically, and we'll go from there. So one thing while this is building is I said 3-max, right? And all of a sudden it's building 500 lineups.
Yeah. Why do you do that? Are you about to explain that? Because I think I cut it down sometimes. I go from 500 to 300 or 250 just because I don't know if I need that many, but what's the reason why you do that?
Yeah. So, you probably don't need 500, but the advantage of building more than just 3 is that we get this big pool of lineups that are all viable, that are all going to be a good foundation of lineups to start with. And we can make adjustments here now in this step of the process. We can just start Xing things out if we don't want to play certain guys, or if we don't want to stack certain teams, or if we don't want certain constructions, we can just start slowly kind of Xing this stuff out. So I will go in here typically, and, maybe say I'm playing a small field kind of thing, and I will just start to go look and see what these lineups are actually looking like here. And you can see.
One thing I like to mention, Jordan, is when you look at these guys, if you make a bigger pool, sometimes it's more alarming when you're let's say Jalen Hurts. I see him on 100% of teams.
Yeah.
But let's say he's on I don't know, 80% of the pool. Then I'm wow, that's even more telling of how good a play he is, right? That's definitely something that I think with building the bigger pool can be really interesting. Is that your kind of thought too when you have that bigger pool? Because if I build on 10, yeah, it's not surprising he could be on all 10, but I'm building 300 or even 500 and he's on 80%. That's really telling the type of play that he is. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, 100%. So this pool column is really useful. We actually added this pretty recently, and that's going to tell you what percentage of lineups in that entire pool have that particular guy. So we're really high on the Eagles right now. I think that's likely to come down a little bit over the next week as things kind of dial in again. These are just super early week 1 projections here. But yeah, it is really telling, right? This is a pretty clear sign, from Sabersim saying, hey, if you weren't already thinking about an Eagles stack, or at least one Eagles stack in your 3 lineups, maybe you should start considering it, right? And maybe that's the boat we were in, right? Maybe we weren't really looking at Jalen Hurts here, but now we want to play at least one lineup with him. We can come over here and say, okay, I only want one of my 3 lineups to have Hurts in it. I'm going to set my max exposure to 34%, right? 1/3. And now to pull in some other lineups, right? We can go over and see here, okay, what's this Lamar Jackson lineup that we're getting to now? This one actually doesn't even have a stack. Now, Lamar Jackson may be the kind of quarterback that you don't need to necessarily have with a stack in a smaller field, but we can also then just go ahead and eliminate that and basically say, hey, I want to make sure I get a stack in every lineup. And then what's that going to do? It's going to pull in the next best lineups here. Now we end up getting to this Baker with CMC and DJ Moore build, a QB +2 here. Actually 2 Baker lineups, right? And we can go ahead and continue to, maybe we don't want to play 2 of our 3, both have Baker, right? I probably wouldn't. We can continue to kind of iterate here and continue to make adjustments. And this is basically why we built 500 lineups, right? So you have some lineups to work with here. You can do some different unique things. Now we get a new Lamar Jackson lineup in here, but I like this one a little bit more because we actually have the stack corresponding with Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman. So that's basically the value of that. And you can see we're getting these nice constructions right off the bat. So, Mangone, I know that you like to kind of, focus on some of the smaller fields here. What are some things that you typically like to look for when you're building out your lineup portfolio?
Yeah, no, I'll dive into that one second. What I do want to mention, just got to say a couple of things about some of the stuff we have here at Run Pure. First, like and subscribe to the video, guys. It helps us out a ton on this channel. We have tons of content coming your way. We have a ton of NFL stuff. If you want to know what kind of NFL content we have for you here over here at Run Pure, we did a video of the release of our content schedule. So be sure to check that out. So please like the video, subscribe, hit that red button. That way you get notified when we go live. And like I said before, if you're liking some of the stuff we're doing here with Sabersim, use that code NFL15, get you 15% off your monthly payment. And it can include Sabersim as well. So be sure to get in on that. But Jordan, you asked me a question about, Sabersim and what are some of the things that I look at. Let's go over to, let's go to the running backs first. Let's look there just so I can see what's happening there. I'm assuming, okay, so CMC is in there 100%. And then interesting thing to note, at least from I guess I see Aaron Jones is still on there, but he's not. Oh no, he's listed. Okay. So you have, I'm trying to just think through. I'm trying to do math, and for some reason, it's not adding up. But I got 3 Christian McCaffrey, and then you have 3. So how is Aaron Jones in the flex in 1, and then all the other ones he's not? I guess I only see 6 running backs.
Oh yeah. Okay. So this is actually yeah. Okay. So this is kind of one. This is like just something to note. So when we're on the running back tab, it's going to show our exposure in the running back positions. It won't. So we have 2 lineups with Aaron Jones, but he's only in the running back slot in 1. So actually, I think the easier way to do this is to go over to the all tab, and we'll just look at our running backs this way. And now you can see. So there you go.
Okay. So how did you do that? It went quick on my screen. Cause actually this is a really good point. And I never knew you could do it this way. And one thing that I was always messing with, I remember with all the sports, I would put in I do the guys at the positions, and then I'd have to go over to the flex and then revamp those guys too that I didn't know were popping in there. And sometimes you can forget that. So I think this is a way better way to do it. So what's the way?
Yeah. So if you're on the all tab here, which would be all of your players, then you can just search for the actual position that player plays. So I just searched for running back, and now you can actually see our running back exposures. The reason it's like that is because sometimes people do care about what actual position somebody's in, right? Especially on the flex. I know a lot of people, maybe don't want to play tight ends in the flex spot, right? So maybe you're coming in here and you're Xing out tight ends here from the flex, something like that. Right. So that's why it's set up like that. But
no, that's great. It's super important and telling. So thanks for sharing that. It was helpful for me. The one thing that I noticed so far is you don't have any of the Mahomes, the Herberts, you don't have those teams. What are they even in the pool? I know some of those later games are games to talk about for sure. Maybe you just have exposure to some of the position players. I mean, at running back, we didn't. Maybe I saw Juju's in there, receiver, so at least you got him. I guess what's the deal with that, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, so this is an interesting situation. So I think we're pretty high on Hurts overall, right? I think this would actually be a pretty good opportunity to go back, turn down the team total for the Eagles just overall, just because 40% of one quarterback is a lot in the entire pool here. We do have a little bit of Lamar Jackson showing up. We get a little bit of Patrick Mahomes. We are pretty low on Herbert right now. So if we wanted to get if we want to make sure we have at least one team with a Mahomes stack, again, that's something else that we can just go get here. We do have a little bit of Derek Carr as well. We could go get a Derek Carr lineup pretty easily. But if you wanted to, maybe, a good opportunity, I think, when you're using Sabersim is to run that first build and then just see, what do I need to change, right? What was I not happy with? To me, it's just a lot of Jalen Hurts. We can get other Jalen Hurts lineups without having 40% in our pool. So we come over here, maybe bump down the team total a little bit, right? Something even a couple points, 23.8 or something like that is still going to have this game project pretty well. It's going to lower the overall exposure that we're getting to Hurts and the rest of the Eagles offense. I also think we can bump up the Chargers a little bit too, because I think I kind of like the idea of getting to some Herbert stacks here. We can go back over to this game. They're already projected at 25.5 points here, but maybe we give them a little bump, 27.5. And what's nice about making these changes is when we do this, you get these correlated changes across the entire team and the entire game. So I'll show you what I mean. If we just say, hey, let's bump up the Chargers by 2 points, the whole team is going to get bumped up accordingly. So now Herbert's projected just a little under 20 points. He was 18. Eckler gets a bump. Keenan Allen gets a bump. Mike Williams gets a bump. All these guys get a bump because we're using the Sims to change that projection. So now if we build some more lineups, go ahead.
I wanted to say it's important to note that because some people, they just go through and they manually are Austin Eckler, I want to put you to 15, right? I want to put this one. And what you can do is you can put them up to the certain one. And if you don't like where it's at, then too, you can just say, okay, reset it and just put it back to the old one. Or if you remember it was at 25, you put it 25 or whatever number it was. So, but I think that's important to know. That way it makes all these adjustments for you on the fly. We understand news can come out really late in NFL, right? And you have an hour and a half, and that is a lot of time. But when you're scrambling and trying to do a million things and there's a lot going on, you're playing a lot of money on a bunch of sites, this is a great, easy, and efficient way to get those things adjusted the way you want to, especially if like when you're messing with the optimizer and you're not getting enough of a game. You're like, why am I not getting more chargers? I need more chargers. I can't manually go through all these guys. And then if I manually go through them, there can be a bunch of errors. You can just do the one bump and then it kind of accounts for it all itself. And then if there are some guys you're getting a little too much of or not enough of, then you can make slight adjustments from there. So I think that's a really great point there that you're showing to the people.
Yeah. And it even affects the Raiders on the other side, which I think is kind of cool, right? Obviously it doesn't have as big of an impact, but as the Chargers score more points, right? Maybe it influences the Raiders passing attack a little bit more, right? Derek Carr gets like a very slight bump here. Devontae Adams gets a very slight bump. You see Josh Jacobs actually gets a little bit of a bump down, right? Probably less involved on the ground if the Chargers are going to put up 28 points. So defense gets a drop down, right? So pretty cool. You get these nice correlated changes and you're not having to go through and adjust every single player manually. I think, again, under the time crunch of like building your lineups on Sunday morning, it's really nice to be able to just have that all done for you. So we can build some more lineups here. I'll just then do another like 500 build here. And we'll just see how that changed it. So.
All right, let's run through and run it. As it's running, guys, please, again, like and subscribe to this video. It helps us out a ton over here at Run Pure Sports. You can check out all the NFL content that we're going to have. Should be starting up on Tuesday, so you'll have Labor Day. We'll have some MLB. We'll have tons of college football this weekend. Some MLB shows as well, but then NFL is really going to start up there on Tuesday. So be sure to be on the lookout for all those shows and some of the times. And if you want to know now what time they're starting, go check out that NFL content schedule release show when you're done watching us. It gives tons of insight of what we're doing over here at Run Pure Sports for the NFL season. Jordan, we got the Sims running. Looks like they're close to getting done there. What are some of the stacks that you're looking at though? Like I know obviously you trust the Sims and everything like that. I think I like those late games. Like I said, like Pat Mahomes, I'd be curious to see what some Pat Mahomes teams look like because Travis Kelce, he seems kind of cheap at tight end this time around. Like 6.6K is a cheap tag. I see Mark Andrews is in there at 6'8". So there's a lot of different tight ends that you can go to. I guess can we make sure there's like, I want to look at a Mahomes team. I know we got 7 in the pool, but I think they're worth looking at least, to see just what kind of teams are popping in. Who doesn't love to talk about Pat Mahomes? I mean, everyone wants to talk about Pat.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, let's get them pulled up here. One thing that's kind of cool, especially, again, if you are just trying to play a handful of lineups, just trying to pick out a couple builds, right? 3-max kind of thing. You can do this view where you basically, you filter by a player. So I'm filtering only looking at Patrick Mahomes. And then I push this like menu aside here and we can just see all of these builds here brought up like right on the big screen here. And if we like a lineup or if we want to, we can edit a lineup, there's a lot of cool things we can do here. So yeah, I mean, one thing, there's a couple different ways to do this, but like one thing that I might be looking at is, so let's say we like just take this lineup, right? As a baseline here. And it's Mahomes, it's Juju, it's Kelce, but there's a couple things about this lineup that I like don't necessarily really like as much. I don't know if I want to play a double tight end build here. And maybe, if we're playing the Mahomes and we're playing kind of an expensive stack here, this is a high total game. This is a game that I think could shoot out. Maybe we want to get an Arizona player on the other side. We added this feature about a month ago here, but I don't think I've gotten really a chance to talk about it enough. We can now just like edit this lineup and dial this in and get this lineup where we want it to be in the app here, right? So we can start doing a couple things. One thing I mentioned is I'm going to move Kelce to that tight end spot and see if that kind of frees us up maybe to play like an Arizona run back here on the other side. I was curious what Rondale Moore's price is.
I think you're going to be a little over, but we can make adjustments. And that was something I was kind of thinking about. You got to change it over to receiver and then we might be able to see it. Or flex
the flex spot. Let's see.
Well, I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, he's so close. 4,000. So we got to make another adjustment here. Is there a, who do we want to cross off here?
I
think maybe, go ahead.
It's not necessarily who do you cross off. So the question is, who do you bump down from? So you're either bumping down Tony, Pittman, or Harris. And the question is, what's like the next best value there? I think Tony, it's hard to bump because
he's 41.
He's 41. I don't know who else is in that range. I mean, we'd be like digging through guys. I'm sure there's someone. There's not no one. So I'm sure we could do that. But I'm curious, like what other running backs are just a little bit cheaper from Najee Harris. I guess let's try that. Just because running back there could just be like an easy, quick fix. That's only $300 less, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know where my head's at. We're already playing the Jets defense. There's a little bit of a positive correlation there. If we put a guy like Breece Hall in there, we get the correlation with the running back, the same team defense correlation. So something like that, I think, makes a little bit of sense. That would get us there. I know, playing the Jets, put the defensive clamp on the Ravens in week 1 is kind of a hot take, but I don't hate it. We got to take some shots anyway in a big GPP like this.
Yeah, would not be my decision, but hey, anything can happen in football for sure.
Yeah.
So I would struggle with it just because the Ravens are a bunch of runners. But I hate the hey, maybe Lamar Jackson starts dropping back more this year. Maybe this is the year where he's not an RB1, but we'll have to see. It should be interesting. I'm sure Snyder, our boy, is somewhere upset with me for saying that, but hey, I like to make fun of Lamar Jackson, but I do like him for DFS. He helps my lineups when he runs around there and gets the job done. The one thing I did notice with the Pat Mahomes teams that I did want to call out, Christian McCaffrey only on 2 of them. So I thought that was a really interesting thing. And then when that happens, it seems like you get like a spend up receiver for the most part with it. So I thought that was interesting when I kind of looked below some of the builds, like I guess the 2 I noticed below were the Deebo Samuel and like the Adam Thielen ones, right? I was like, okay, they're spending up for basically you're going Juju, you're going a tight end or double tight end with Goddard and Kelsey, or you're just going like a spend up receiver. So I just thought that was a really interesting thing that I noticed with some of those Pat Mahomes teams, how that was basically taking account for the loss of CMC. And those are things that I look at when I kind of look at the lineups, Jordan. One thing I do in baseball, like let's say that I want to have doing a Yankee stack and I want Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge together. I don't just go in there and lock them in and run Yankee stacks. I run the Yankee stacks and say, okay, which ones have them? And is it organically happening? Or is this just something that's like, it doesn't fit math wise and it's just not working properly with the teams I have? I had that same thing yesterday in baseball with Julio Rodriguez and Mitch Haniger. I'm looking, hey, I want to have a Julio Rodriguez and Mitch Haniger team. I think it's tough to make work, but let's see if the Opto does put it in there. And I ran 20-ish teams and I found enough of them where I wasn't like, hey, there's one in there and it's just like jamming stuff in. And those are the things that I like to look at. Like if I run like a Pat Mahomes, a Juju, and like a Kelsey, and like, let's say we're in week 8 and Juju costs like $8K now. And it's just like jamming so much in and I'm getting like just so many duds. It's like, okay, maybe this is, yes, maybe that team has some upside, but like, there's just too much downside with so many bullets that I have to just like feel like I'm rolling the dice on that I just don't think they're all going to hit. So these are things that I like to look at when I build my teams. And I'm not going to force the Opto to say, hey, lock this guy in, lock this guy in, lock this guy in. And it says, hey, you wanted 50 lineups and I only got 8 for you. Well, you only got 8 because there's a reason why. And that's just a mistake that I've made a lot in the past that I don't want people to make now, right? I kind of just like to talk about it. And I think it's an important part of the process. What's your thoughts on that, Jordan?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, remembering that at the end of the day, there's like positional requirements and salary requirements that you can't just do, if you could all just play all the best players at every position, it'd be great. Right. But you can't just force anything to go in if it doesn't fit. One thing that I do think, can be an advantage of having a tool like this, if you're just playing a handful of lineups or even hand building or something like that, is you can kind of test out those things, right? Like we could do something, we could say like, so you mentioned there's not a lot of CMC in the Pat Mahomes builds, right? We could do something like, let's actually lock CMC in here. And then I'm going to set a stack rule. And I'm going to basically say, we want to stack Mahomes with 2 of his pass catchers, and we want a pass catcher on the other side. This is just an example.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is a great rule to go through. So continue, because I like this rule. I know a lot of other people in the industry like this rule, and they want to know that it's something that they can do if they'd like.
Yeah, so you can. So yeah, I mean, we have the right here, right? QB, 2 pass catchers on the same team, 1 pass catcher on the other team, and we can even say, if we want to just for research, even just only look at the Pat Mahomes stacks and just kind of see how they're looking, right? And we don't need 500 in this case, right? We'll do 100 of these builds and just see what the lineups look like. Right. Yep. And now we got CMC locked, and you can do this for research, right? Maybe you're sitting down, you're looking at the slate and you're like, okay, this is my angle. I want to stack up the Chiefs Cardinals game. I want to play CMC. He's underpriced. Can I do all that? What do 100, even if you could probably hand build a few of those lineups for yourself and kind of see what they're looking like. We can build 1,500 if we wanted, probably in just a couple minutes.
Well, another research purpose reason that I like, like you could say, like, let's say CMC is the chalk of all chalk on the slate. And he's someone that like, you're like, man, I want to build CMC teams. He's going to be 35% owned, but I want to make 20% of my teams. Like I'm going to be under the field on CMC, but I want them to all be very unique. How can I make them unique? And if you see CMC is like not showing up on like, let's say showing up on maybe like, I don't know, 10 to like 15% of the Pat Mahomes teams and like kind of some of the stuff we noticed, you could run like maybe like 33% of those 20% teams, you could make Pat Mahomes stacks. Those are already unique CMC teams. Now you make some more unique CMC teams. Maybe it's with Justin Herbert. You're seeing those not pop up. Those are ways you can be like, I can still be under the field on a player, but there's still unique and sharp teams where if it hits, you're not on that chalk construction and you feel like you're making a unique combination. That's kind of some of the thoughts that I have, Jordan. Is that some things you ever look at?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think, looking just at the data here of how this all kind of ends up fitting together can be kind of useful. I mean, one thing like, this is telling me is like, hey, if you want to play this construction, like you almost kind of have to play Rondale Moore. Like it gets hard to fit in some of these other guys from a salary standpoint. Like that's kind of the cheap run back that you get on the Arizona side if you want to build this game. So like that also now, kind of explains to me a little bit of like, why weren't we seeing a ton of Patrick Mahomes in the very first build we did to start this build? Well, it's expensive to stack this game up. And like, it's also expensive to stack this game up with CMC. So maybe playing the like Jalen Hurts stack, the cheaper stack there, or like getting to some of these other cheaper stacks is a way to like build a lineup that's still correlated and still also gets to play a lot of the best plays. So I think again, just using these builds, like setting this stuff up the way you want to, running a build, seeing how it comes out for research is a really good idea. Zach Ertz, another like cheaper play on the Arizona run back side that we're getting to quite a bit in this build. So.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. You need to do that Ertz with the Kelsey. I don't think that's bad at all. But hey, Ertz is old. Not a bad time to play him at the start of the year. But that's going to wrap it up for us, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us here on the show. Again, use that code NFL15, get you 15% off your monthly payments, and it includes Sabersim if you like. So be sure to sign up now. You'll get that for life. You're locked into that price, and you'll be with us, and we want to have you here. You can get in that Discord chat, and we'll help you become a better DFS player. Also, please, when you're getting out the door, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not. We appreciate it. We got to get on out of here. For me, Mangone, and Jordan, we will see you guys later.